now for Michigan's 12th Congressional District. She's been serving in office in general since 2023. A progressive politician, she is a Detroit native of Palestinian heritage and the first Muslim woman to serve in the Michigan legislature and one of the first 2 Muslim women in Congress. She is known for her work on economic justice, social justice, clean air and water, and advocating for vulnerable communities. Thank you for joining us. Next we have Wayman Hayes. Wayman Hayes is the Director of Early Learning and Youth Development at Focus Hope. Yes. He was one of the first students to attend a Head Start program on the southeast side of Detroit, as well as the first male center administrator to open a Head Start all-male leadership academy at the same agency and location. With over 22 years of experience in the field, Wayman credits deep family involvement in early childhood education as his source of motivation. Let's give it up again for Wayman. Next, I am going to welcome up State Representative Regina Weiss. I saw you just walk in. Thank you for joining us today. Regina Weiss is an American educator, so important. Regina Weiss was a teacher. She actually taught one of 482 Forward's alumni in school, so it's real. She was a teacher. And she's also a politician now, serving as a member of the Michigan House of Representatives since 2021. She currently represents the 5th District. Anybody from District 5 in here? Okay. And she is a member of the Democratic Party. Let's give it up for State Rep Regina Weiss. Next and lastly, we have Heather Eckner. Where's Heather? All right, let's clap it up for Heather. Heather is the Executive Director of A2 Ideas, a special education nonprofit organization. She is also serving as the Director of Statewide Education and Outreach for the Autism Alliance of Michigan, leading initiatives under the organization's education pillar, which include programs and strategic initiatives aimed towards systems change. Most notably are the statewide education coalitions that Heather convenes, connected to the special education at the grass tops and grassroots levels. Let's clap it up for Heather. All right, so as I stated, I'm missing, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I am missing one more panelist. Let me just make sure that I say your name correctly. Give me just 1 second. So this individual that's here is representing actually you are the superintendent of the ESE department, correct? Assistant superintendent of DPSCD's exceptional student, yes. And it used to be called special education, but now we are calling them exceptional students, as they are exceptional students. And so she's here today as well. Thank you so much. And if you can remind me of your name, I'm so sorry. Lauren Carter. Nzoma. I remembered Nzoma. I could not remember the first name. Lauren Nzoma. Let's put some respect on Lauren Nzoma's name as the assistant superintendent to this department. All right, so as I stated earlier, we are going to do this panel a little differently. Each person will have 5 minutes to speak and respond to questions, and then 3 minutes for any follow-up. But before we start our panel, we wouldn't be 482 Forward if we didn't put parents at the forefront of this conversation. And so we have a few parents of special education students that are going to come forward and share their stories with us. And those parents' names, I know that we have Aisha Brassel, we have Talitha Harris, and we have Vilma Duran. So please come on up in that order, and we will hear from you about your stories. Let's clap it up for them one more time. Yes, one more clap it up. Let's clap it up. All support, all support. It's hard grabbing this mic. Y'all don't even know.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Aisha Brassel. I am a mother of a beautiful 12th grader. Like, we have navigated this journey for 12 years. I have had sweat, I have cried, I have screamed, I have given up, but I stayed steadfast. So I was told to list 3 things about special ed. So be a parent first at your child's IEP meeting. Your love and presence matter most. You don't have to carry the weight alone. you can seek the support of an advocate to walk beside you. Stay involved in attending your PAC meetings, which is your parent advisory committee meetings in your county. Getting to know your representative and understanding your rights as a parent. These steps remind us that while advocacy is important, the heart or journey is being there for your child as both their parent and their greatest guide.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, my name is Talitha Harris. Thank you all for coming. I just want to make a few points about special education. I have a now 7th grader that has been in the special education program ever since he was 18 months. This has been a long journey, but I thank God that he has had so much progress. The few things that I did want to say about special education is that there are often a lot of stigmas tied to students that are in the special education system, especially when they're in general ed situations. My son had experienced situations where he was bullied or where he didn't feel inclusive, and he struggled in the classroom setting in general education. And one of the challenges that we have faced is the communication that we need between the staff and the providers and the parents. And so our hope is that as we move forward with legislation and funding, that we can correct some of the loopholes and the gaps that are in the special education system between the parents and between the school system, so that we can have better cohesiveness and working together for the sake of our children. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vilma Duran. I am a first-generation American. I'm also a single mom to twins that are 5 years old and both neurodivergent. So I want to be able to get you guys to have an image in your head of what it means to live a day in their life. Imagine you have a hard time adjusting to changes. New classrooms, new teachers, new support staff. No one is aware that you have different needs, and staff isn't trained in identifying that you have become dysregulated. You try to run to escape the noise, but now you're being grabbed and you're called a problem child. You stim to soothe yourself, but now your classmates and their parents are calling you crazy. They're calling you weird. You're 5 years old. So imagine what that feels like to a child that might be nonverbal or has limited verbal skills. So I'm definitely here today to tell you all that no child deserves that experience. We should do better, be better.
That was absolutely amazing. So first of all, thank you to each and every one of you. We're going to welcome Aisha onto our panel. So let's give it up for Aisha. And we are going to get started. Everybody ready? Let me get a thumbs up if you're ready to get started, just to make sure. All right, let's get started. So my first question is going to be for Rashida. And also, I wanted to address apologies. Attorney General Dana Nessel is not here. She was not able to make it. Unfortunately, she had to cancel at the last minute. And we're hoping that everything is okay. We know that there was some kind of emergency. Have to address the elephant in the room. She's not here, so we're going to move forward with the panel that we have, and very excited about where we're going to go. Just wanted to make sure no one was waiting on her to come through the door. All right, so this first question is for Congresswoman Tlaib. Can you talk a little bit about the dismantling of the Department of Education? As y'all know, Linda McMahon was actually in Detroit this week at the high school I graduated from, the woman that's excited about dismantling this department. We're wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
I wish somebody gave us a heads up.
Yeah, yes, they did.
We would have gave her a nice Detroit welcome.
So tell us about that, and then what impact the federal budget cuts have on special education and just education overall.
So just so folks know, of course you all know, part of Project 2025 is to dismantle public education. So it should not be a surprise that the administration went ahead with that plan and dismantling and basically illegally and unlawfully going around Congress to try to, again, eliminate the Department of Education. So you all know we're obviously in court litigating debating this and pushing back, won an injunction on it. But right now, I'm still, I signed a letter opposing the fact that they were trying to move special ed to HHS, Health and Human Services Department. Many of us have been pushing back against that. We obviously also in the 2026 budget wanted to make sure that when I say IDEA, it's Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It's literally the law of the land when it comes to special education in our country. And you all know, and many of you may not know, and I learned actually probably my third term in the State House to fully understand that the federal government, you can call mandates, you can call it, but they require, and again, rightfully require all these different federal policies to make sure that our children who may, again, require wraparound services, special education, are getting that support and being able to be in traditional classrooms, being able to be, because before they, and some schools are reverting back to that, segregating them away from the traditional classroom. And again, that really actually studies show over and over again, it's not helpful. It actually makes it worse. And a lot of educators that I talk to tell me, it's great, we want to be there, but we need that wraparound support and we need that support in the classroom. But it's only at 15%. So I want to, folks to understand, the federal government promised to pay 40% of the cost of special education. And a lot of parents always go, okay. And I said, but we're only paying about 14 to 15%, which means a lot of school districts, and I got 2 or 3, one is in $10 million out of, again, the general fund into following through and making sure they're not in violation of federal policy. It's really important to note that's it. That's all they're doing is 15, 10. Even though the need, and Heather knows it, the need for special education in the students have increased by 25% in the last 2 decades. So the need has actually increased. And I know, and I want to get into, everybody knows I'm an environmental justice advocate. I believe in clean air and clean water. I know it's because we're making our kids sicker. The things that we're putting in our bodies, the air, the water, everything. And we don't want to get into that and start following into this, way of like, how do we get, but the point is, our children now more than ever need the federal government to step up and get to that 40% so that school districts can provide that care. I think it's also really important to know prior to this administration, Michigan was not in compliance. I'm going to say this again. And I want, this is important because I think some people are afraid to say this because, oh, we don't want to look like we're anti this. It's not about a person, it's about our babies. Special education in Michigan, we're technically, and I tell Heather, I say this all, we're technically on probation right now. In 27 years, the Civil Rights Division within Department of Education said they had never seen a state go as far as getting into administrative hearing process, which means we're in court, right? Under the previous Biden administration, I don't know what's going on now, but under the Biden administration, they were taking us to court because we would not comply with the federal policies. That shouldn't surprise anybody. But because I wanted to get an update, what's going on, what's this? They were fighting in court. And shouldn't be surprised. I don't care, again, who's governor, who is the head of our Department of Education. I really don't care. Because at the end, previous administrations didn't want us to have the right to literacy. And now we've got administration telling us, oh, we didn't violate any federal policies. And they told me, they were like, this doesn't make any sense. We worked with LA County, we did mitigation, we did all this stuff for over a year, negotiating, trying to get them to comply, and they didn't want to comply. They said it's not up to us as school districts. That's not true. And again, I know that we're going to continue, again, being on probation. We're one of the worst in the country, am I not right? We're one of the worst. And I say this to all of you because I think it's important to understand why we're here. I think we kind of look away because they're like, oh, there's a Democrat there, or there's this person there, or we know this person. No. The fact of the matter is it's underfunded. And second, it has become very difficult, even post-COVID, to go around and try to address, right, the loss in learning. And we didn't give, again, the districts, but I just wish people would say, we have a problem, we want to fix it, instead of saying, we don't have a problem. That's what I get to have a problem with. Say that you have a problem, but they're saying, we don't have a problem. We didn't violate any laws. And so it's really important, while the state is out there saying, we're all good, look it up. I had a meeting with a couple of State Board of Education members because I was really upset that we weren't, under the previous administration, trying to get a resolution to this. But, at the end, if we're not in compliance, we can jeopardize federal funding. So I think it's really important. But going back to this current administration, you all know, you see who's in charge. You see who's got their fingers all up in there. This is something that has been tried so many times, and it's always the parents, it's always all of you organizing against it and not trying to let them privatize. My God, the big ugly bill had vouchers in it. You know, and we're going to fight against it. And Regina, you know, they're waiting for you all to sign off on it, and you don't have to. Let them take you to court, you know. But it's, I mean, that's $1,700. I mean, it's ridiculous how there's more money for vouchers, Regina said, than special ed. And I had approached by this guy, got off and at the airport, Coalition of Christian something schools, and no offense, you got private school, but public money has to stay public.
Yes.
So we have to have oversight and transparency in that. And I don't think we should, you know, allow again this move to happen when they haven't even fixed the problems of, you know, what, 2, 3, 4 decades of special education in our country. So litigation is resistance, so we're doing that. Know that there's 99 members of Congress right now that support the full funding at 40% for Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, not one Republican. I just want to put that out there. I think it's important to know that every district around the state is impacted. This is not a Detroit issue. This is not Southeastern Michigan issue. It is a statewide issue. There have been reports not only by Autism Alliance of Michigan, but so many different groups have looked at this and said, we have a chronic problem here in Michigan. And again, I can tell you many of the advocates and others know of these various stories. It's not just the mom here of, you know, I mean, I had an IEP for Adam, and it was, you know, even I had a law degree. It doesn't matter. It don't matter. If the resources and the wraparound services is not there and they don't have it, that's years that we can't get back for our kids. So I know it's a long answer, but know that there is a intentional dismantling, but know that the chronic issue with special education did not come up just because Trump's president. It has been there for a while, and Michigan has not been in compliance under previous administration. So it's really important to put that, shine it, a light on it, and let's figure out a real good fix that's sustainable so that we can get our kids caught up.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's clap it up. It's amazing. Thank you so much. Very clear answer. I appreciate it. Before we move on, and I want to talk about this, Michigan already is not paying enough for special education. So, like, what could this mean? But first, any responses from anyone else that wants to speak to this dismantling, possibly, of the Department of Education?
Yeah, I have to say that exactly what Congresswoman Tlaib just said has been true. When I first joined Detroit Public Schools Community District in 2018, I was on a core team with Scott Kniezek, and we addressed exactly what she's talking about in terms of Michigan being at a tier 3 because we were out of compliance, and so we had the path forward. You can look it up. It's still a document that exists right now. A few of our members from the Exceptional Student Education Department ended up being in some of those breakout committees. My question has been, how have we missed aligning MDE's top 10 and 10 to all of that work that we did? And we talked about the areas of graduation rate. We talked about how we're servicing students and how we can make that more inclusive in schools. And then we talk about what that means in terms of outcomes for students. Because we can talk about compliance all day, but I remind everybody in my department and beyond, compliance is a very low bar. We have to get to outcomes. And so I just want to say I'm a mom here in the city of Detroit. I am an educator, I'm an advocate, and I have a child with an IEP. So I'm not sitting here as just an educator or central office person. My children go to Detroit Public Schools and have. My grandchild started this week. So I'm saying this is my neighborhood, this is my community, this is the work that needs to be done, and I'm glad that I can do it.
And we so appreciate having leaders like you. It matters when your kids go to our schools, right? Like, it absolutely matters. So thank you, Lauren. All right, so this one I'm going to pass to Heather and Regina. Michigan schools are underfunded by billions of dollars. We know. Special education funding is even more complicated and underfunded. Can you share your thoughts on SPED funding and what, if anything, needs to change? And feel free to also address what you were hoping to address before, Heather, and then, like, wrap it into this answer if you'd like. Oh, yeah, for sure. However y'all want to do it.
you. Appreciate it. Yes, so several things. Rashida talked about the fact that the federal government underfunds special education, has always underfunded special education. That 40% mandate, we have never met that 40% mandate in the history of IDEA. And so that really falls to the states. And so when we don't have money to fully backfill that amount, what ends up happening? Where does that money come from? Well, it ends up coming out of the general fund. And so ultimately, and as we should, we are required by IDEA to meet the needs of every student in the state. And so when the federal government fails to provide enough financial resources to do that, when the state government fails to provide enough resources to do that, ultimately that ends up coming out of the general education budget, and it's just less money overall for everybody. And so this isn't just an issue for this is an issue, of course, for special education students, but this is an issue for all kids in the state, and really all kids across the country, because everybody is impacted by the fact that we do not fully fund special education. I will say that for our part, something that I just worked on this week and introduced this week is legislation that would codify into law a requirement that special education, along with several other important categoricals like ELL, at-risk, school meals, money for school transportation for rural and isolated districts, and for several other really important categoricals, that it is would be required by law that it be funded every single year at a minimum level. What we're seeing right now, unfortunately, is I'm sure everyone in this audience knows, because we're all engaged, we have failed to pass a budget in the State House. We passed the July 1st statutory deadline. On October 1st, the constitutional deadline triggers a government shutdown, and state aid payments to school districts stop going out. The first state aid payment that would be missed would be October 20th. And a lot of districts are already taking out emergency loans. Many districts have already made plans, have already started cutting programs, cutting staff, and doing other things because the state has failed to do its job. Now, we were in charge for 2 years in the House. Dems were. I chaired the K-12 budget at the time. We never had a problem getting our budgets done on time. It's very frustrating. Myself, and we have Representative Scott, who serves with me, House District 8. Thank you. The numbers change all the time. I never to keep track. House District 8. We've always passed our budgets on time, and we have been advocating to get the budget done. And in fact, several school groups, organizations sent out a pledge today to every legislator and the governor in the state, making sure that we all pledge to fund schools, including special education, at a minimum of $2.8 billion, that we will not sign off on any budget that does not meet those minimum requirements. As soon as I received that pledge, I signed it. Because these are basic things that we should be doing as a state. And it is ridiculous to me that we're halfway through September and we still don't have a K-12 budget passed. It's insane. And the earlier versions of the K-12 budget that were passed by the House, that I voted against, Representative Scott voted against, would have diverted about $2 billion away from K-12 education in order to fund road funding. We're not going to support any kind of budget that does that, and we will fight back against any kind of budget that does that, because our school money is for our kids. We need to fix our roads too, but not on the backs of our kids. And so we'll keep fighting that fight.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah. That's T. Carter, right? Yeah. That's the bill.
She has the
it
exact
that
bill.
you're talking about. Okay. It just came through today, and I pulled it, so I was like, "Is that what this is about?" Yeah. Lots to unpack with this, and affirming what others have shared. But fundamentally, I always raise the point. We start to get down into lanes and silos, and these kids and those kids. Every student in public education is a general education student. It's not other kids, it's not those kids. They all have the right to be there. And what's happened over time is the structures of how we've dealt with money and funding and then requirements is we automatically then shuttle kids this way and shuttle kids that way. And fundamentally, back to one of the earliest comments that Rep. Tlaib made, research shows that having kids together, they all benefit from each other.
Yeah.
Kids with disabilities benefit from being around their neurotypical peers, but guess what? Their neurotypical peers benefit from being around kids with disabilities. And it shouldn't be that the way we fund things push kids out of classrooms. So when we talk about this, and I get how we get down there because it's like, it's really a lot of stuff to unpack. It's really complex systems. You talk about education policy and finance and special education. I'm not sure there's a more complex area. I'm not, I think that's it. I think we're doing it, right? And so, you know, we talk about like the budget pulling to fund special education pulls from general fund. Well, guess what? That's students' money too.
Yeah.
So I appreciate this kind of unified stance of this is about all of our kids. And for some kids with disabilities, they are requiring specialized supports and services that the federal law coins special education. That's where that all comes from. It tracks back to terminology used under the IDEA. And weaving in this whole thing about dismantling the Department of Ed and budget cuts, those have their own intent to undercut at a resource level. But when you go after the resources, you are fundamentally undermining the rights of our kids. And that is all by design, right? So yes, it is true that ever since IDEA was enacted, 1975, so this November it will be 50 years.
Wow.
The law has an anniversary of 50 years, the 50th anniversary this end of this year. And it never has been fully funded from the federal government. But guess what? That needs to be fixed. Thank you, Congresswoman. But for like 27 years, the IDEA Full Funding Act has been introduced and has never gone beyond introduction. So yes, absolutely we need to keep pushing on that. And like, that's not the excuse. The obligations then have always fallen to the states to figure this out for their kids in their state. So when you hear people say, oh, woe is us, what are we going to do? The federal obligation has never been fulfilled. Yes, the federal obligation, they should fulfill that. But also, you're waiting how many years? How many decades are you waiting to do right by kids? So we've got to figure this out in Michigan for Michigan kids. And under really tough circumstances, but over time, we laid the tracks of this. And honestly, the Autism Alliance started to step into it because, you know, I started getting pulled into like policy tables about education policy and education frameworks. And I was invited as like the token special ed person. And what they really expected of me was to show up, go along to get along, and then they're like, box checked, right? And because I look a certain way on paper, like that was the expectation. And then I showed up and I was like, y'all didn't do anything. You haven't figured this out. You haven't done the deep work. You know what? Every time I see an MDE press release and they talk about, oh, graduation rates are up, that's great, right? Do they disaggregate for kids with disabilities? Because we have one of the worst graduation rates in this nation. When they release the M-STEP scores and they're like, oh, incremental gain, I want that for kids, right? Do they disaggregate for the test scores for kids with disabilities? You know why they don't do it? It is ugly. Nobody wants to have honest conversations about where we're at. And they're going to tell you, we don't need another report telling us how bad we are. You know what? You must, because guess what? You haven't done anything about it. So we kept showing up in spaces. I was getting invited into places as the only one. I was the special ed person. And I'm looking at stuff and I'm like, you didn't figure this out. And then everybody got mad at me, which I'm fine with. And I was like, I'm going to keep saying it, but who's doing this work? So there was some fundamental work that you were part of and others. There was a special education reform task force in 2016. That's when the first calculation was done of this gap between what special education currently in the system costs districts and what Michigan reimburses it at. Only 5 states in the nation are a reimbursement system. Michigan does a reimbursement mechanism. I think we see the trend line now. You're not going to be shocked when I tell you Michigan reimburses at the lowest rate of all the states that do reimbursement, 28.6%. Why is it exactly 28.6%? that was determined through a court case. So the state had to be forced to reimburse special education at that rate, which is the lowest rate. So we keep setting minimum obligations as if they're ceilings when they're the freaking basement. And we cannot accept that, and we have to keep using our voices. We have to keep speaking out. So then there was this shortfall gap, and it was like, $700 million is this gap. But you know what we're talking about still? We're talking about the current system that produces some of the worst outcomes for kids with disabilities in the nation. I don't know about you, but I'm not too interested in patchworking that one back together. Stop with the patches, stop with the performativeness. And so we were coming into spaces, and there were some projects done, like if you've heard of the SFRC, the School Finance Research Collaborative. And it did this big study. It was the first time in Michigan, 2018, they issued their first findings. And they said, there is a long way to go. It's how we got this, we're in the hole, $4.5 billion that we've been underfunding for decades. And their recommendations broadly across all these different student subcategories was to do a weighted student formula, targeted, tiered by the student needs. Okay, so you look at special education and they were like, yeah, that's what you should do. Well, how? How do you determine the tiers? What is it based on? How do you do the formula? And that was, by the time I stepped into some policy tables, it was 2021. Everybody's moving and saying, this is what we're going to do. We're going to transform education finance in Michigan. We're going to fix this. And I was like, well, what's the plan for special education? And they're like, no, we don't want to hear from you, right? Just go along to get along. We'll get to those kids later. Well, you know what? I'm still using the word equity. I'm not backing down from it. And if you actually look at what equity dictates, you go to where there are the most barriers, the deepest disparities, the kids furthest from opportunity. Disability knows no bounds. It's in every school building. It's in every community, rural, urban, suburban. English language learner kids can also have disabilities. Economically challenged kids can have disabilities. You compound all of those. Those are your kids furthest from opportunity. We always leave that to we think we're going to figure something out later. We need to design around the kids with the greatest needs. Y'all have been going in the wrong order of things. And that's what we kept saying. Well, nobody wanted to hear it. So then we said, all right, we'll collect our own data. Nobody else is going to do it. So we did the statewide special education experience survey. Do you know what portion of the state we got the most results from? Detroit. Thank you. And it was because of our partner organizations like 482 Forward, Michigan Education Justice Coalition. This was a grassroots movement to not say anything new. We all know what the barriers are, but it was going to put it in a way that it was like, you cannot refute the collective voice. And the top issue from this survey across the state, had almost 900 respondents, was we need to fix the resourcing. We are not resourcing education the way we need to. So then we were like, all right, how do we do that? How do we figure out a weighted student funding formula? And I couldn't find any funding support to do it. So then we changed tactic and we said, well, really, we think the legislature should care about this. And so we advocated to get a legislative appropriation to do the study, to figure out the framework, to move from a reimbursement system to a weighted funding formula. Representative Weiss was supportive of that. And do you know who came for her? Some of the school associations. So it doesn't always make sense in this space of policy and politics. People you would think would be aligned on the same thing, because we say we want to be student-centered, we say we don't have enough money, we say we've got to figure this out. Then when it comes to it, it's like, but nobody wants to trust anybody else's solution for it. Do you know what I mean? But we prevailed, and over the past year, we've been doing a statewide study to build a new funding formula for special education. We have built it. And DPSCD has been brought into the table. We have actually engaged with more than 1,000 people across the state to try to refine what are all the considerations, what do we need to look at. And fortunately, in 2022, Ohio did a cost study on kids with disabilities, and based on evidence-based practices, what does it cost to educate different kids with different needs? So we used that most recent research, and I'll tell you the number. That model that we built collectively in Michigan. We made a Michigan model based on that research out of Ohio, the cost modeling. And when we run it through our current population of kids in Michigan eligible for special education, districts should be spending collectively $1.25 billion more than they are. So we kept talking about, let's fill this gap of what districts are already spending. And this is what I'm saying. It's a different conversation because it's not about patching the current system. It's about transforming away from this bullshit system. Sorry, Pastor. We have to move away from this broken system that isn't set up to serve kids to one that is based on what kids need, what the research shows kids with different needs, what it costs to educate them. And guess what? All the schools that have been saying they don't have enough money, we've always believed them, but now we can show the work and say, you're right. And this is the exact amount. And, you know, it's like in these tough times, it's like you feel like you are talking about monopoly money. So, but you know what? This is a doable glide path. If we say you implement that over 6 years, that's an investment each year of another $200 million. It's still a lot of money, but I don't feel like we can call on the system to produce better outcomes until we reconcile with the fact that we have been starving kids educationally from resources, and then blaming it on who? Teachers, parents, the kids themselves. We have to stop that madness, and we have to call for transformation. Everybody likes to use those words, equity, transformation. Let's actually call them to task and demand that they do something now that we have a blueprint plan to do it. And so that's going to be rolling out this fall, and we're already in partnership with other orgs. So I know I kind of went long on that, but it really is like the through line through all of this. We can talk about all the symptoms, but the root cause is that Michigan never had an intentionally designed resource structure for special education. It then explains why we've never been able to figure it out for our kids. So we've got to write that.
Yeah. All right.
I just really quick, really fast. Heather, thank you for doing that. Because I will say that going through the appropriations process when I was chair, one of the things that was really frustrating about special education was that, to your point, we have the SFRC that has recommendations for ELL, for weights, for several other things in terms of what they should be weighted at. But for special education, it was really hard to figure out what should we be doing for increases here. And so that information is going to be really vital for the appropriations process moving forward. And I will say that it wasn't until, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, that we, for the first time, funded the foundation allowance fully for special education. Because it used to be that we weren't even giving kids who qualified for special education services their full per pupil amount. We were counting what they were getting in as a reimbursement rate as part of their full, as part of their per pupil amount, and so they were getting even less than they should have been getting if they were considered a general education population student. So we did correct that for the first time, I think, last year or the year before. But the fact that for years we were giving special education students not even the base level that everybody else was getting is ridiculous.
Thank you so
Sorry,
much.
I was just going to say, it's like we weren't counting kids with disabilities as a whole child.
Right, yeah. That's
Like
crazy.
that fundamentally, when I say every student is a student, that right there, policy, doesn't always, it reflects our values.
So,
Go ahead. Yep.
okay, yeah, so I just wanted to, first of all, my longtime colleague here, Heather, and a former DPS teacher, Regina, she didn't say that, but she is, and they're doing the work, and as parents sitting out here, and a parent myself, it's an and, right? Because children don't have time to wait until we get it right.
Yeah.
And so there is a onus for us as school districts to still produce and do what we need to do with what we have. We have to make the most of it. So that sometimes that looks like what we're currently looking at, reorganizing when we don't get the staff that we require because of national critical shortages that exist. It's not just Germain or Detroit. But we still are on the hook for meeting that I said compliance is a low bar. We still have to meet it. We still have to do the compliant things, and sometimes that has to shift in terms of what those services and the programming looks like. So it's an and we're glad to have partners like Heather, like a state rep, Regina Wise. We took 75 parents, staff members, and some of our staff from the Office of Exceptional Student Education in 23, when she was over the K-12 appropriations, and we spearheaded taking those families up to tell their stories. So what I want to say to families and to those who are in the schools doing the work, you still have to keep telling your story.
Yes, ma'am.
That wins. That is what helps people who have no inkling understand what it really looks like. So when we took our families, we had a student with autism who actually was on the panel with us. She told her story. Wow. Her mother on the panel, she told her story. And I sat back. I didn't even speak till they were finished telling their story. I'm here to support. So we had some finance people. We had a principal, your former principal, on the panel who spoke, Norwood, Tanya Norwood. And that is what this group is so, they do so well. That is what Autism Alliance does so well, is connecting back to the community. So you continue to ascertain the information, continue to develop yourselves, join our parent advisory committee. Yeah. We had about 109 participants last night. I have fought for years to get that back up and running. We need consistent parent involvement. We are not afraid of change. We are not afraid of improving. We have done a lot, but we got a long way to go. No one is afraid of you sharing that information back to us so we can get it right, because it's an and. They're going to keep fighting in their space. They're going to keep the lobbying. They're going to keep the research that they have the time to do. And we're going to keep servicing students every single day the best way we can. But we need you all to continue to tell us when we are not meeting that mark. Compliance, say it with me, compliance is a very low bar.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am. Thank you so much, Lauren. And I'm going to ask you a little bit about that reorganization, too, in just a moment. But let's pass to Aisha.
Okay, so when I hear about special education in school, first thing first, as Heather stated, each special ed student is a gen ed student first. You have to take testing in order to be deemed, to have a medical diagnosis to be deemed in special ed. That's first and foremost. Second, how many times are we going to sit at this table and talk about what the problem is and not come up with a solution? As a parent, let me tell you what I had to go through. I had to fight for my daughter to get her high school diploma. They told me in 10th grade it was no way that my baby was going to obtain her high school diploma. Guess what? Before I clotheslined the whole entire IEP team, I had to sit and I had to pray. Yes. But I also had to give me an attorney and an advocate, because that school district, they wasn't listening to me. But guess what? Come June 4th, my baby gonna walk across that stage with her high school diploma. So you can't tell me what can't be done. When we sit at tables, it's no reason why parents don't know what the Parent Advisory Committee is. I sat on PAC for 7 years in Dearborn High School District, disrespected by every Caucasian that was there. But guess what? I still didn't give up on those families. I still didn't give up on those kids. So when I'm sitting here on this panel and I go to IEP meetings throughout Metro Detroit, Dearborn Heights, Oakland County, all of it, yeah, it is a collective, but I get tired of hearing the same thing. We working on a problem. We working on a problem. Excuse me, Pastor, when the hell y'all gonna fix the problem? Because it's post-secondary education time for my daughter. Why am I looking for resources? It's supposed to be an IEP team. It's no IN team. It's the school versus the parent. You tell a parent, hey, your child needs an IEP, and you just hand them the paper. The parent don't know what that language is. It's a second language to them. Yes, so how are parents supposed to get ahead if they don't have the tools and the resources? Our ecosystem is broken. Absolutely. I dedicated 14 years working for the state of Michigan. How many parents call to say, hey, my child got this type of diagnosis or that type of diagnosis? And when I say, hey, is your child enrolled in school? No. Why? Because I didn't know it was a school that my child could go to. Now, that's part of the problem.
Yes, it is. Yes,
So as a worker, when I was a worker, I would say, hey, let me help you get those tools and resources. You know what they thought I was doing? They thought I was CPS trying to take their kid. But no, I was that worker that would show up at your house with the school packet like, hey, here you go. Like, let's get your child enrolled in school. And I don't know how many times I've helped parents, assisted them with enrolling a kid in school, and the school turned them away. So when we want to talk about the schools, the whole ecosystem is broken. If you ask me, how are we going to fix it? Why is it that DPSCD has five seats for Parent Advisory Committee? I believe it's only 2 on there. Every school is allowed to have 2 representatives to rep their district for the Parent Advisory Committee. Detroit Public Schools, that's the largest school in the county, and they have 5 representatives, but it's only 2. I'm going to say that and let it go.
Oh, man. She dropped that mic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think when a lot of people talk about telling their story, one thing Aisha can tell you is, filing the complaints is important. There's a process at the state level. The way I got with Autism Alliance of Michigan and Aisha and a lot of folks, my parents, is I needed to teach them how to file the complaints, because I can't just go and say this happened. I got to say, in the Civil Rights Division, which they're trying to eliminate within Department of Education. But there's also a state level. And again, documentation is important, y'all, because this is how we can get to enforcement. So it's just really important. If you don't know how to do it, you can always reach out to my office, others. But the way we were able to get a meeting with superintendent, and they even acknowledge, but this is years. Yeah. And before the person, we got the actual filing of the complaint, I had no idea that's how deep, the challenge and the problem was. So I think just, how they say, tell your story, that's fine, talking to each other. I was like that parent. But I also wish I knew, at that moment, I knew that I could have filed a complaint on behalf of my son. I think it's really important to reach out and say, I got a complaint, I got to file a complaint. Even if they fix it, file the complaint so it's documented, because another parent, it might happen to them.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. Amazing stuff. And this is what we meant. Y'all are answering the questions that I had just in this conversation. So I'm going to take things in a little bit of a different conversation, but if you know, you know. Head Start connects to special education. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And so, Wayman, for you, early childhood Head Start programs are a critical piece of special education families. Focus Hope has been a pillar in this community for more than 50 years. I heard that the shuttering of this new program impacted almost 500 families just on the west side of Detroit. Can you talk about the recent cuts to Focus Hope's Head Start program and what impact that has on the families throughout this community?
Okay, so first, I want to paint a picture and tell your story. The one closest to the fire can tell you how hot it is. A lot of times we have individuals talking who's not close to the fire at all. We have individuals making decisions who's not close to the fire. I've been at Focus Hope for 11 years. Over the last 11 years, I lost 6 staff. 6. Wow. I lost 5 parents. 2 through gun violence and 3 through suicide. I lost 2 kids. That's over the last 11 years I've been at Focus Hope. So our staff there was a close niche of individuals. We serviced 358 students between Center for Children, Glazier Elementary, as well as Durfee, Life Remodel. Over July the 31st, 2025, I had to lay off 107 staff. 107. Why did this happen? We had a partnership years ago in 2014. It was a partnership between organizations that came together. A partnership. And a partnership means that everybody agreed that you're going to come together and one organization was going to be the lead. Since 2014 and over the years, the partnership changed to a grantee and a delegate relationship because you had switched leaders. And when you switch leaders, things change. Right. It was incidents that happened within the city of Detroit with 2 other organizations. And when an incident happened, it put the program in recompetition. Once it put the program in recompetition, organizations agreed to write separately. We was not competing. When you compete, you're writing for the same dollars, you're writing for the same numbers, you're writing for the same zip codes. everybody agreed to write for their own zip code. Focus Hope service 4238. We service 48206. And we was trying to serve 48211 and 48202. When we put our application in, right before the president was elected. And once he became elected, he switched up in March and shut down the regional offices. And once he switched down the regional office and dismantled that, now you have people making decisions about spaces where they don't have a clue at all. Remember I told you that it was not a competition, even though they called it a competitive piece, because everybody agreed to write for their own zip codes. Not only did people agree to write for their own zip codes, we was funded by Kresge, who brought federal people in to help everybody write their grants. Focus Hope was not selected because of the switch. Other organizations receive funding. The unequitable piece of this is some organizations receive higher dollar amounts than other organizations within the city. You have state-funded programs that serve kids. Let's be real clear, we're talking about special education. Over the last 11 years since I've been at Focus Hope, we have not received proper service from DPS at all to serve these kids. And the program right now, last year, 30% of our kids had a special need. The federal government says through the Head Start program, you have to serve 10%. We had 40%.
Right.
About 5% got served because of shortage of staff and other reasons. Out of the 40%, autism have, I don't know if people paid attention or not, but it have risen to a high level. Right now, currently, we still operate through GSRP funds and state subsidy funds. Head Start programs, a few, $30,000 per kid. $30,000 per kid a year. Then you have programs like GSRP that only pay $1,222 per kid.
Wow.
See the unequitable piece of that? Head Start provide wraparound services where you have family service workers, you have coaches, you have other things. With that $30,000 per kid. With GSRP, $12,022 per kid. State subsidies only give you between $3 and $6 an hour.
Wow.
So these are the ways numbers of kids are being serviced throughout our state. And we wonder why test scores are low. I was a Head Start child. Because she used to come all the time when I was a kid. I'll tell no ages, but you know. But these are the problems before they get to public school, before they get to kindergarten.
Yes.
The third grade reading level is terrible. And why? Because it's unequitable across the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with this recompetition piece, that they said it was a recompetition, but it was really not, Focus Hope was displaced. And it just was no agreement to how the kids was going to be served. So right now, Focus Hope is still trying to service the families through GSRP funding. We've been reaching out to the state. They've been very helpful, but the money's still not the same. Remember I told you I had to lay off 107 staff. I was able to only bring back about 12.
Wow.
The 48238 zip code do not have federal service funds in there at all. That's a problem. Because again, Head Start provides the health, make sure the health requirements is done, the disability requirements is done, these other services that's done comes from Head Start. In that zip code, it's not there at all. And 48206, they do not have service in that area. What they told them was the other grantees that was in the area, so they're still responsible for the kids. Maybe you can bus them in, or maybe you can provide other transportation to give to your organizations. Parents can't do that. We have parents that walk to bring their kids to school every day. It's wraparound services that's needed. There's other services these kids now that would not have in these zip codes at all. Now you do have other programs that can service kids and try to help support, but how the family's going to get them there?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, some of those programs do not offer all the wraparound services that the family needs. You cannot go to work for 8 hours, because most jobs you got 8, right? Even though some people gonna work 5, but you still got to pay you for 8. But in these Head Start programs, a lot of, not knocking nobody, but they only offer 6.5 to 7 hours.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's not even enough time for families to even put their kid in school. And these are some of the things that families need. So we talk about equity, we talk about these things. Right now, everybody's trying to point a finger, and I'm not looking at point a finger.
Yeah.
My thing is how we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
How I'm looking at our leaders, our elected leaders who we voted for, who we stand in the lines and vote for, that we go out and petition for. How are you going to get up there and fix it? Because we talk about Trump, and I'm not political. I call it politics. I mean politics. I don't call it politics at all. I call it politics. But he's doing everything he said he's going to do and what he want to do.
Yes.
He going there doing whatever he want to do. I wish Obama would have went there that he want to do. He probably would have made it. But he's doing exactly what he want to do. And I'm just looking for one of my Democrats to go in and do the same thing.
Yeah. Thank
Just
you
go in
so
there and be
much.
bold
Yeah.
and do the same thing.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. So first of all, aren't y'all
I think
just
it's
learning
important
so
to
much?
know that Congresswoman Debbie Dingell and I had a meeting with the Assistant Director for Office of Head Start on the federal level. This is above everyone. And some of the claims that they did, because they got rid of our regional directors. So regional directors were aware of the fact that this was in competition, because see, they funded the same people again, not realizing you all were, you know, and then again, even though I know it was in the application, and it's not an excuse, but when I told them it was over 300 kids, and of course we send them information, we even got a letter from a parent and everything, but it came back, you know, thinking that, I said, well, there's lower slots, so who's going to fund? And I specifically always mention 48238, always.
Yes.
And I said it's a very challenged community, all the things. Of course, they were able to say, oh, we're going to bring only back the return them about 52, whatever. 52 kids. So I said, what's going on, whatever. That's why I looked at you, because they told me, oh, the state's going to come in through Great Start Collaborative. Great Start Collaborative is GR, yeah, Great, yeah, yep. So I just not use acronyms. I know that. They say they don't have to go through the process, because I asked about that. Because I said the Head Start program started already. It's aligned with the school year. So, you know, that's why I was texting. I wasn't trying to be rude. I was texting him. I was like, hey, I'm on a panel. I didn't say, I swear. I didn't say. I said, I'm in a room with a bunch of parents asking me what the heck's going on, because they said, and I don't want to give, that's the thing, when the state does that, sometimes I appreciate it, but it gives the federal government off the hook. Because in each application was letters of support for each other. Okay? Now, I'm still, because Starfish was, I'm going to say it, Starfish was the lead applicant here, right? And they were basically subgranting. I'll say subgrant. I know you guys use different terminology, but they subgranted to Focus Hope. So they rented out the space. They gave the money to Focus Hope to be able to serve our kids. And so when they came in, they decided, okay, Focus Hope was like, well, we want to be a direct grantee. Starfish is like, same thing. Everybody did their own slots, right? And so on the face of it, they said, well, we didn't know. We thought they were all competing with each other. This is what they claimed. And I said, well, look at the slots. It didn't increase. You know, you actually got lower number of slots. Now, my issue, though, is the amount of money that some of the lead orgs got, specifically Starfish, is a problem. And I know it's going to get back to them. It's okay, because they know I'm mad. It's kind of little. It's higher. And I specifically, not that. Look, I'm all for the 2031 requirement to increase the amount of money that we give our educators in Head Start, absolutely, which is supposed to be implemented in 2031. I'm getting deep into it because I think it's important. But it is not, honestly, like, I don't think the administration top even know what happened. But I think what is so negligent on the part of the changes is they get rid of, they go, oh, well, this is miscommunication. Well, maybe you shouldn't have got rid of the Head Start regional offices. They closed them all down. Right? I mean, they were literally your go-to person. So who are they supposed to go to? What are we supposed to? And then I think that what they did is went back and said, oh, we gave them money last year. We're just going to get the same orgs, without realizing that means nobody was reading the applications. Yeah. Right? Nobody was. So I want you to know, some of it's because really irresponsible negligence on their part. And now we got 300 kids without access to Head Start program in the zip codes they're signing. So I just want you all to know some of the behind the scenes. As soon as, and Portia and I in direct contact, I just text her again, like, is this accurate? Because I ask him and he responds right away. He doesn't like sit, he responds right away. Because he doesn't like when me and Debbie Dingell are mad at the same time. And so, because the amount of money didn't decrease. So where's the savings? And then I said, well, where's the savings from closing down the Head Start program? Go give it to Focus Hope. So that's kind of how I talk. But I know it's not that simple. But just know, you need to know, they found some money and they were trying to work it out. And the proposal that was put forward just wasn't enough to get all of our kids. We didn't want to pick a handful of our kids. It was not fair to say, okay, well, yeah, give us that and we'll take these kids. Well, what about the rest of the kids? We want it all or nothing. We want all of our babies back or nothing. Yeah. So I know that might be a harsh stance, but we do believe the money and the support's there. Now, please know that we're not the only state that this happened to, because this is not the only time. So some of the other 2 other states that did this, where they separated out and did direct application to the state for Head Start. And they were able to get it fixed. We can get it fixed.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was a question that Heather had. So we can get it fixed. I'm going to let Wayman respond.
Just put a couple of numbers to it, since you said it. I didn't want to be, I said, yeah, right. So last year, academic year, Starfish served 1,250 kids. They received $26 million. When they put the application in, they gave them back their grant and gave them $24 million to serve 817 kids. That's a big decrease. 24 million. And then and I appreciate you fighting on our behalf, UNW, they found $1.6 million to help to give back to Starfish on top of the 24 million. So that would have 25.6 million, almost to close to 26 to serve 1,200, which they really not gonna serve. There was only 817. And they wanted to only open up 5 classrooms, rent space to open up 6 classrooms in our building. That's it. It was gonna serve 50-some kids. And the only thing Focus Hope was really gonna receive was for rent costs. And that was like $68,000 a year. That wouldn't have paid the lights and gas in that big old building. I'll just be truthful. It wouldn't have paid the light and gas. So, of course, the CEO said we have to figure out another way to get this done. So,
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you, Congresswoman Tlaib, for saying it was solved somewhere else. We're going to solve it here. I think that's what all of us want to know, right? Are we going to make it right? Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to do one more question that we have, because I know we talked about the DPSCD reorganization of special education. I want to make sure we get to that a little bit. What's happening, why, and what should people know?
Great question. I'm glad we're having this discussion. So the reorganization comes aligned with what you heard us talk about, some of the national critical shortage. As you know, DPSCD is a large geographical spread, right? And so we have, I can tell you right now, we're short about 30 school psychologists, largely because no one is producing them at the rate we need them out of universities. People are not going into these fields at the rate we really need them to go, despite many efforts. In addition to that, we could talk about speech pathologists, and we could also talk about school social workers, and special ed teachers are in there too, all right? So one of the things that we did is look across the large geographical spread, and we had students way far east, way west, wherever that may be, crossing each other with transportation routes to go to let's say an ASD program, right? I have a student who lives east, but at the time they were evaluated and found eligible, there was no space east in any of the programs east. So then we have to transport that child on a route west. That can be 40 minutes depending on where the actual school is. They will be passing their peer who is going to a program who lives west, who became eligible at a different time. All those programs were filled, and now we're crossing students in different areas trying to find what program was open. Does everybody follow me?
Yeah.
The routes were ridiculously long for some of our students who really can't tolerate that long of a ride. That's one thing. Also, you heard about the funding deficits, so we have to look at being fiscally responsible or more efficient and we're causing all these routes pinging all across the district, right? Not good. In short, resourcing is the large challenge, resourcing. So now you have 8 what we're calling inclusion sites, where we have increased the continuum of special education programs in those 8 sites. What we're able to do is maybe they previously had just resource and maybe one, let's say, mildly cognitively impaired program. You now have the full continuum of programs that we offer for the most part, along with those ancillary staff providers. So there's a psychologist who doesn't have to split between 4 or 5 buildings because we don't have enough. They are 1.0 full-time at that site. Speech paths, we're not sending speech paths to 4 or 5 buildings. You are full-time at that site. Is everyone following what we're saying? So we're able to hub at those sites. Thankful to the board, thankful to Dr. Vitti for agreeing to hire an additional special education or ESC assistant principal who has the credentials required by the state of Michigan to be a special ed administrator inside of each of those sites, okay? Then in addition to that, we added what we call a parent liaison. That could be a parent, it's a part-time role, and they want to bring them in. If you're already, volunteering, we have a lot of families who volunteer, you may have been a candidate for that. They are in that school in order to support parents' understanding, advocacy, so on and so forth. We also added additional paraprofessionals. We also added additional staff. So if you had, let's say, maybe before you had 2 autism spectrum disorder programs, you may have now have 4 or 6 because we went grade band. So we were able to cut grade bands where it might have been from K through 5, you had 1 teacher with autism spectrum disorder programs. Now you have K through 2, right? A lot of times it's just K, because K is different, right? So sometimes it's just K. So we're able to narrow down grade bands, K2, 3, 5, 6, 8. So that is largely what we're doing. Yeah. We are hubbing the resources so that we are not spreading those folks out, and it also wears and tears on our staff. When I can go to a clinical space, I can go to a clinic, I can go to a hospital as a speech path and make way more than I ever could in a school, I'm going. We added, thanks again to the board and the superintendent, we were able to add on top of their salary a $15,000 bonus to try to attract teachers, special ed certified teachers, and ancillary providers to Detroit Public Schools Community District. And guess what? They're working on the funding. We're all working together. It still is not enough. We still cannot recruit enough people, even with that large bonus. So we are short, and that's just, again, not germane to Detroit. I was on a national call today. I was on a state call the other day. I was at the state meeting in August, and there's thousands of people in the room, and they're all saying the same thing, whether it's a large district, small district, it's just scaled. And so what we're doing is rethinking the way that we do things in Detroit. We're rethinking it across the county and the state, and that's what we're going to have to continue to do. Do families love it? No, because sometimes you have to switch, and we have to say, sorry, ma'am, this is where we need your child to go. It's nearest their home, right? And they don't understand that. I want my child to go wherever I want them to go for whatever reason. And then there's siblings. So, right? So you might have one child with, I'm going to keep with autism, but there's 4 siblings. So there's a major shift that we have to employ in school districts. We're institutions. We are doing what we need to do in institutions, and it's going to continue to evolve, change, and upgrade.
Thank you. Real quick from Wayman, and I'm going to take some of these questions just so we can get to the audience questions too.
I just want to ask, what are y'all doing to grow your talent? Because I used to teach at University of Michigan in Flint. I taught at Baker College. People are not diving into education like they used to. So we have to grow the talent. We cannot keep putting the high applications and the requirements out and people just jumping from job to job, getting the bonus and then jump. So we have to rethink this. You have to grow your talent at the end of the day. So you have to grow them and find out where people are at who want to involve and grow them. If we're not growing the talent, we're just doing a disservice.
Absolutely. I can answer what we're doing because that was a question. What are we doing about growing talent? I'll tell you a couple things. One is we have a pipeline option for teachers that are either general education or, I love this, I was able to work tightly with Michigan Department of Ed and Wayne Risa. We now have a para-to-teacher program. So we're now going to graduate our first group of paraprofessionals who will become certified special education teachers in December. And we started with 24. We started with 24, you know, for different reasons. They don't remain, but we help them with that in terms of studying skills. We do that in my department. It's not the state, it's not RISA. We do that. We also support them with, hey, you don't have the $60 for a clearance? Okay, we're going to figure that out for you, right? But it's fully funded for them. They don't pay for a thing.
Wow.
They don't pay one dime, not for tuition, not for the books. If you need a bus card, we will find a bus card for you. So that is some of the things we're doing. We are getting gen ed teachers who go in to get the special ed certifications. The two main areas are autism spectrum disorder or cognitive impairment. And then in addition to that, we're also working through our pipeline. When we get in student teachers, we get in, they call them practicum students for the clinical areas, and we are growing them, and they love it. We have a lot of training involved for them. They learn the full gamut from birth to 26, and we have the largest continuum from early on. You Head Start, you're our partner, but early on, birth to 3 in the homes, where else can you learn to do that? And so they love that, and we do actually retain a lot of those students.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Together, I'm sorry.
Yes, tell me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just to add on to that really quick, because that's something we did statewide through the budget last year, is we appropriated a lot of money for Grow Your Own and Talent Together, so that we can get more people, especially as you mentioned, like paraprofessionals and other people working in schools, to actually build that pipeline to get certified so we can get them into the classroom full time as well.
Awesome. Also just found out about a program that Wayne State University has where every summer they host DPSCD, or I think just Detroit students for 6 weeks. You can start when you're a freshman, and it's training you to be a teacher and get into the Wayne State College of Education by the time you're 18. So there's definitely a few programs, but always could use more. All right.
I'll add on that because we've started re-upping on, anyone remember Teachers of Tomorrow or social workers, or, you know, so we started re-upping on some of those programs as well. And I want to shout out START, Statewide Autism Resource Training. We are a START district, which is evidence-based, as you know, and how to promote inclusion. In START, we run peer-to-peer. We have been awarded internationally for our growth and our work with Special Olympics and Unified Champions. What Unified Champions is the arm of Special Olympics, where we have students who are disabled on teams, different sports teams, with their non-disabled peers. So what we end up doing is developing leaders. So there's a course that those students actually can take as an elective that is peer-to-peer. They are getting credits in order to learn the skills, how to work with students. And both gen ed and students with disabilities, both are benefiting. We're not selling or promoting our students. We are saying, hey, this is a benefit for you and your family as well. And those young people actually ask questions about joining and how do I do this as a career.
So cool. I'm learning so much up here.
I know we want to get to questions, but I just wanted to lift up a couple of quick things. So don't roll me out of here. I live in Ann Arbor, but I want to say this, and you know because you were there, but everything you just heard, it's districts like Detroit where there are some of the greatest challenges, where they've been under attack for so long to dismantle, that are doing the most innovation. And areas like Ann Arbor that skate along on their collective affluence in the community do not try this hard for kids with disabilities, do not work this hard. In all of my years, I now have an almost 17-year-old son who's autistic. That's my oldest. I was trying to get Ann Arbor Public Schools to come on board and double down on being more involved with the START training out of their ISD and doing more peer-to-peer. And it was like a lot of blocks along with it, just because, you know, it was just like, oh, we don't have to do that. We already are doing good things. But like, you're kind of not in some ways. And Lauren and I, we met in Ann Arbor when you were there. So that's why we've known each other for a while. But like, or literacy. I look at like literacy. Please don't ever compare literacy rates between Detroit Public Schools and Ann Arbor Public Schools, because you're not comparing school to school. You're comparing wealth. You're comparing families that are paying to supplement the results of districts like the Birminghams, the Troys, the Ann Arbors. That is not a fair comparison because most of the innovation, the grit and the digging in is happening in the places that have been left behind by a lot of this stuff. And then my last thing, and I swear I'll get off the soapbox, but I appreciate your honesty about why the reorganization was happening. And what I would just kind of call out is, but also parents being frustrated by the changes, that's valid too. Absolutely. And these are the examples of what we're talking about structurally. Like there's the everyday, trying to get through every day and all the individual issues that come around with that. Right. But then what my kind of work is I take all of that and I like look at it all and I'm like, well, what's the common thread? What's the root cause? What's the underlying thing? And that's why funding keeps coming back, because technically the obligations under the law, under the federal law, under state law, is not supposed to be based on budget capacity, caseload. It's not supposed to be based on these restrictions. School districts shouldn't have to hub resources because they are so limited. But decades of chronic disinvestment, especially in places like Detroit, right, where they tried to take over the education system, where they've tried to dismantle the education system. Now you're being forced into these decisions, and there's this like in-between space of like, is that your preferred way? Yeah. Probably not. So I appreciate the candor and the honesty about, look, we're trying to do the best we can and serve the kids in the ways that we can with dealing with a lot of complexity and a lot of challenges. But also, and I'm not saying you do this, but also, it's okay to be unhappy about it, parents. It's okay to talk about the challenges, and nobody should be telling you, look, because it's hard, stop talking. It's everything we've been trying to amplify. Keep lifting it up, because we can't make change if we all get bowled over by it, right? So I just wanted to kind of call out that like duality. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my God, Imani, I'm so sorry.
At me if we don't get to these questions.
I know.
We'll go quick.
I'm going to say. So the reorg. So in that, because I am a parent, right, and I have a child where I've lived through all of the things. But I will say this: we held about 20 parent engagement sessions about the reorg because we really don't. We really understand that it's about choice. Mm-hmm. Parents want to choose what they believe is best for their children. They don't want people dictating to them, right? I pay taxes. Why do I have to go where you telling me to, you know? Mm-hmm. And so we're not saying, I appreciate that statement. Yes, I'm explaining. And you can still not like it. Mm-hmm. And you can still have a conversation with us because we want to hear that. We actually are tracking conversations with families. We had an engagement session, like I said, last night. We tracked parents who had concerns. We sat on the phone, me and my team, till 10:30 last night, responding to those, calling each parent. Parent, I can call you tonight. Let's address it. And today, we were in those buildings, in those programs where the parents said they had concerns, correcting where we needed to correct, training where we needed to train, and then giving a follow-up. So I really say to parents, please get involved. You are correct. I forgot your name on the end. You are correct. We have 5, I mentioned a couple times, but 5 spaces on the Wayne Risa. We only have had 2 people, and we have been trying for years to say, Mom, you would be great. Would you please do that? We have to get parents in those spaces, sharing the voice and what it means from our district. So if you are in this room and you are a parent of a child with an IEP, I'm doing a commercial, please come over here. See Miss Tierra, the chief of schools, is over there. Nydia Ashby, that's my boss. She's making sure I say the right thing. No, I'm just kidding. But please, leave your name and number if you are interested in being a part of the Parent Advisory Committee. We need you. We need consistency, which we have a hard time getting, honestly, from our families. We do. Absolutely, we always do. Translation, American Sign Language, we have it on every time. If you're on there, you can have Bengali, you can have Spanish, you can have, we have it.
Yeah. All right, thank you. I'm going to pass it to Aisha. And then do you have a card, my friend? You have a question? Okay, I'll come to you with a card. I'll have Amy come.
So one thing I want to say is that parents, you have to be active. As everybody... Is she trying?
Yeah, we have a translator right here.
Okay.
I know her.
Okay.
She's a parent.
Okay. Yeah, it's coming South Detroit.
So I wanted to talk about how it was mentioned that there were 8 centers. Dedicated to special education with specialists and people involved in special education, but it looks like they're closed and we don't have in like Southwest Detroit. So basically, because these centers have been shut down in the community where I live, the Latino community, we're also, you already know about the demands for special education students or the needs. But on top of this, we also have the fact that we have to travel far out, and a lot of the parents are terrified of like being detained or they're undocumented. So this is another struggle that we're facing.
I understand. Yes. And
Yeah, so I'm sorry.
sorry for everybody else.
On
Yes,
top
go
of the fact that these centers are far for us, you know, it's already very difficult to get them into these programs, these special education programs. But then also you have the language barrier, and so we're looking for that help.
Yes, thank you so much. So this is something, is Dr. Jackson still in here? She just left. Okay. We actually just had to intervene with a situation where we saw some families being stopped. So I understand what you're saying, and it is a challenge because families do not want to travel from where their community is, where the language is, and the supports. And so we have programs still in Southwest. They have moved some buildings. I know you, I can't remember what building, but I know that we've spoken before. While they've kept some in Southwest, they're not all still in Southwest. And so that does present a unique challenge. And so the driving is an issue. I know that I'll be following up with the superintendent about that. We did discuss that with the reorganization. But again, I want to overemphasize, I was at Earhart, I was at Bennett, I was at several schools yesterday. And so we do still have those programs, but it depends on if they were overfilled. Right, so now we get to the point of the number of students who are being evaluated. I will tell you now, since the beginning of school, we have 260 plus students who came over the counter, no IEP, but extreme needs, toileting, feeding, mobility issues. So as someone was speaking, I think this gentleman here was speaking about students coming in with an extreme need. We're seeing that too. So our numbers are overfilled in most of our programs right off the jump. If we're supposed to have 10 students in a class per the Michigan rules, we are at 10, 11 waiting to get in, 12 waiting, you know, the 12th student waiting to get in. So I believe I understand the challenge, but I'd like to understand more about your specific question. But the general concern and need in the community is well understood, and we will take that back to the superintendent.
Absolutely. And as y'all know, Lauren said that she's willing to stay a little later, you know, than 7:30. So even after we officially end our panel, still stick around. We have the table over there, and I think they would love to get to know more about individually what you have going on. All right. With respect for everyone's time, it is 7:29. So we have a lot of questions here. I'm going to look to Arlisa for 1 second. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that, are you?
I can stay.
All right, so I was going to ask everyone that's on the panel, are you all able to stay for another 10 to 15 minutes? Okay, amazing.
Can I make my comment?
I promised to be home by 7. I was just the anxiety. I'm a mom and a congresswoman, and so I just text him because I usually try to tell the dad.
Absolutely, yes.
Co-parenting.
Yes.
That I'd be home by 7:30.
Yes.
I'm always a liar. See. So I need to wrap up a little bit.
No problem. So here's what I'm thinking. All of you have amazing questions that are on these cards, but if we end right now with a few things at the end, maybe y'all could catch the one person that you have the question for before they leave instead of us all sitting up here and making this go a little bit longer. Is everyone okay? Can I get a thumbs up if you're okay for us to move on and y'all ask individually the questions that you have of those who can stay? I see one thumbs down, and I love you so much. You know you my girl. Democratically, though, I think we're okay to move forward. So can we give it up for our panelists? We agree. We appreciate you all. All right, if y'all can feel free to have a seat in the audience. If you have to leave, I totally understand. We're just going to wrap up the program really quick so y'all can move forward with your questions. All right. Yes.
Can I give you a suggestion?
Yes.
Maybe you could also follow up with us, like, by email with the
Of course.
questions.
Of course.
And then we can maybe put it in writing and send it back to you.
Yes.
And share it out to everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll keep every question that I have, and then everyone that registered, well, everyone that signed in today, I'll send out an email of all of their follow-ups. That's a great idea. Yes, and if it's for DPSCD, you can meet them at the table. All right, one more round of applause for our panelists. We so appreciate you. And I appreciate everyone that made their way here today, and I appreciate everyone that wrote questions. I appreciate y'all for being here. We just have a few things that we want y'all to know before we wrap up. First of all, I want to shout out specifically 4824's special education team. Shout out to y'all for throwing this amazing event. So important, so necessary, so timely. I'm sorry. I want to shout out Representative Elena Scott. Thank you so much for being in the place. We appreciate you popping out, even though you're not on a panel. That matters, and we see you, and we appreciate you. This is your district, and so we appreciate you. I want to shout out all of the volunteers. I want to shout out AC3 Church for hosting. Thank you so much, Pastor Jason. It's always a pleasure. We also have a few calls to action. Over there, if you have not already signed our petition, we're asking that before you leave, you sign our petition. That will help us raise more money for public schools in Michigan by taxing rich people, taxing people that make $500,000 or more in a year at a 5% surcharge. If you haven't, Lindsay has petitions over here. Make sure you sign before you leave. I want to shout out our Lisa. Thank you for all that you do for all of our students. And I'm also going to pass it back to our Lisa to wrap us up.
So, yes, thank you. Put your hands together again. I tell you, for such a great panel. I should know this by now, right? Sunday morning? Is this what I can? So, thank you so much. I just want to call your attention to the vendor tables. We have Michigan Alliance for Families that is a great resource for our special ed families. If you have not visited, please do. And the Student Advocacy Center for those of us that have children that get suspended or have problems and they're not doing right. I looked up and I saw my niece here with my great nephew, and they were part of her team. They've been working with all this time. Oh my. And I just want to ask him to stand up. We have somebody that's trying to do some big things in Battle Creek. Battle Creek, what district is that? The 4th district. You're running for the congressional seat. Diop Harris, can you stand, please? He is down with Invest in My Kids. He represents all of the things that we definitely stand for. I want to just call your attention to him. We need to support this brother, even though we're not in the 4th district, but call your friends and your relatives who are. Is that okay? 4th district covers what?
So it's on the west side of the state, 94.
Hold on. Hey guys, can we, if you have to have a conversation, can you please step out? Yes, please come up.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Diop Harris, born and raised in Battle Creek, Michigan. I'm looking to be Rashida's colleague on the west side of the state. My district is where Bill Heisinger currently represents. Yeah, boo, boo, boo. but it covers Battle Creek, Kalamazoo, Holland, in the Lakeshore area, Benton Harbor, South Haven. So I know I'm on the other side of the state, but consider me a fighter one and the same as Rashida. If you're down with the fight she's taking on, I believe y'all would be supportive of a campaign like mine. So I'll be hanging around and able to answer any questions if folks have them. Thank you.
And I want you to peep, last name Harris, Pastor Harris. Oh, okay. I didn't know if y'all knew that. Okay, are we done? Are we done? I thank everybody. Put your hands together again, please. This was such a good thing. Y'all know folk like to talk. I like to talk. We can't have talking 20 minutes. That ain't gonna work. But anyway, thank you to the After Christ Christian Center family and Pastor Harris, both Pastor Harrises, for opening this place up and canceling some stuff just so we can be here. That's the heart of somebody that really wants to see things happen. Can you bring something? Oh, for those of you in District 5, District 5, you know, this is our community here. Please, there are some flyers. We will have a District 5 meeting right here on Tuesday at 5:30, I believe. It's either 5:30 or 6. The flyers are at the table as well as out front. That effort is being led by the City of Detroit and Mary Sheffield. We were formerly District 2. Now we're going over to District 5, and they're doing a series of welcome to the districts. And so they're going to have the meeting here. Everybody that you know, if you're in District 5, please be here. This is the time to ask questions and stand face to face and make some demands. Amen? Oh, is that right? Hopefully the new candidates will be there. Can somebody tell the candidates that's running in 5? Because I can't seem to get a hold of them. Can somebody please contact Renata Miller and Willie Burton and ask them to show up if they're going to rep District 5? Okay, I put it out there. All right. It is September the 16th, which is this coming Tuesday, at, I believe it's 6 p.m. There's a flyer somewhere with Mary... The flyers are out front. It's either 5:30 or 6, but the flyers are out front. It's 6 p.m. At 6 p.m., Tuesday, District 5. Tell everybody. And please, can somebody tell the candidates that's running for the district to be here? If they want to be elected. Huh? Whoever.